Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, wherever you may be listening, and whenever you may be listening. You are tuned in live to the Scarb Show. I am your host, Andrew Scarborough. We are live here in Salt Lake City. The current date today is September 19th, 2023. So we got a lot to talk about today. Man, we got quite a bit that's happened over the last week. So let's get into this podcast and let's go, baby. All right, everybody, welcome to the Scarb Show as we are live at Salt Lake City. We have a lot to talk about today. And first off, we are going to start to the NFL world, the National Football League, where I want to do something a little different here before I get into some other news with the NFL. I want to try something. It's going to be kind of a new segment I do probably every couple of episodes, but it's called overreaction or underreaction. And basically what it is I give my overreaction or underreactions to different sports topics that are happening currently. And then I explain why I feel that way. So let's get into that right now real quick. So to first start off, for my first take on the NFL season here is Dak Prescott is fighting for his job. And this is not an overreaction. This is an underreaction as the Cowboys have come out at a start of 2-0 and have looked on fire. I mean, after that Trey Lance trade that Jerry Jones made behind Dak Prescott's back, Dak Prescott is looking to, prove that he is still the guy in Dallas. Obviously, he's getting older now. He's a well-seasoned veteran, been in the league for like 8 or 9 years now. So Dak Prescott is trying to ride the ship as long as he can in Dallas because obviously Jerry Jones traded for Trey Lance from the 49ers because they could look to him in the future to be their future quarterback. But man, Dak's proven them wrong this year. Dak's looking to, not only be the quarterback for the next couple of years coming, but to, ride the ship and possibly win Super Bowls over those next couple of years. And he has looked great. Obviously, the first game they beat the New York Giants 40-0 in a massive blowout, and then came out and beat the New York Jets this weekend. So they are officially 2-0 in the NFC East, and it's looking like it's Dak Prescott's year this year for sure. So that is definitely not a overreact. That is definitely an underreaction because the Cowboys are looking for real this year. And especially without Zeke Elliott, man. I mean, Zeke who, bro? So, man, I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I got to give them props, bro. They're 2-0 in the NFC East. It's looking like a great division already as the Eagles are 2-0 and the Commanders are 2-0 in that division. The Giants are 1-1. So they're still hanging there. It's still early, obviously, in the season. So we could see what happens towards the end. But, man, the Cowboys are looking like for real. My second over-under reaction is the Jets. The New York Jets are in shambles. And this is an underreaction because the Jets are in shambles, bro. After the Aaron Rodgers injury and after their blowout loss to Dallas this weekend, Zach Wilson is just not the answer for the Jets, and I don't think he ever will be. I mean, he's had his third year. Almost willed the Jets to a win on Monday night last week. Don't get me wrong there, but he just doesn't look like a starting quarterback in this league. Zach Wilson is a decent backup, obviously, but man, the Jets are in shambles. Breece Hall even went on to say on social media and even on Twitter, which later got deleted, saying that the Jets lost to the Cowboys last weekend because he only got 4 touches. And they passed the ball pretty much, and he only got 4 rushes. And he's kind of right. He kind of is. I mean, you got to mix up the pass and run game in the NFL. Defenses know who you do and know your tendencies. And when you're consistently throwing all the time, the defense is going to set up to pass formations and knock you down almost every time. So you got to mix it up. And only giving your running back 4 carries, that's just not going to get it done in the National Football League. Your running back's got to have an equal 20-20. I say about 25 rushes and about 35 passes. So, that is not an underreaction as the New York Jets are in shambles, and they lost last weekend, and it's only going to get worse because Zach Wilson just isn't the answer, and the team already is having drama problems and already falling apart. So sorry, Jets fans, but it's not looking too good for you. And then my third overreaction, underreaction, is Justin Fields is a bad quarterback. And I've been saying this for my past podcast. This is an underreaction because Justin Fields, this first 2 weeks, has proven that he is not a good quarterback. He just isn't. He's had he looks like he's regressed. I mean, what does this guy do? He runs all the time. He's a Michael Vick that can't throw. He's a Cam Newton that can't throw the ball. He I don't get what is the overreaction with Justin Fields being a top 5 quarterback in this league. And people are blaming it, oh, it's because he's on the Bears. Um, well, the Bears went out and tried to help Justin Fields by getting DJ Moore, building up their offensive line, getting some new weapons here and there, and they look worse than they did last year. So I don't know how that's an excuse. How Justin Fields is terrible because he's on the Bears. No, Justin Fields is terrible because he is not a good quarterback. He just isn't. I'm sorry, but he missed some wide open passes against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this weekend, and can't see down the field. There was a play where DJ Moore was wide open for a touchdown, not even covered to the right of him, and they ended up taking a sack on the play. It's like he can't see. He just can't see. So Justin Fields, it is an underreaction. He is a bad quarterback in this league, and I've been saying this for so many months and years now since he got drafted. He is just not a good quarterback. And then my last overreaction, underreaction is Aaron Rodgers apparently is looking to come back in January from his Achilles injury, which is about 5 months away due to some new type of surgery that makes it heal faster, apparently. I don't know the exact details, but they're saying he could come back in January, and this is an overreaction to me because I'm sorry. I know the world is evolving and I know technology is evolving, especially in the healthcare business, but how do you recover from a completely snapped Achilles tear in just under 5 months? I mean, maybe an ACL tear, but the recovery time, and not only the recovery, but the rehab process you have to go through to make sure that tendon is strong. Man, I wouldn't, even if he was healthy, I would, 5 months removed, who knows if that Achilles tear pops again. I mean, you saw it with Kevin Durant, he popped his Achilles twice. So who knows if you come back in January and repop it and it practically ends your career. So definitely an overreaction that Aaron Rodgers returns in January. He has continued saying though that this isn't his last year and that he continues to play in the NFL next year and finish out his 2-year contract with the New York Jets. After next year, we'll see what happens. But I guess now I could see Aaron Rodgers coming back. It looks like that fire is lit under him, and he wants to prove that he is Aaron Rodgers and not go out this way. Obviously, he wants to play at least 1 year with the Jets, but I don't think it's going to be back in January. We'll see Aaron Rodgers next year in the fall of 2024, but definitely not in January. That's an overreaction for me. All right, and then some NFL news to cover before we get out of this NFL topic is Nick Chubb, running back for the Cleveland Browns, is officially out for the season after suffering a gruesome left knee injury in Monday night's loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Man, and it was a nasty. They didn't show it on TV, but I saw it on Instagram and YouTube and stuff. What a disgusting injury. I mean, you prayers up for Nick Chubb because definitely he is done for the year. His knee went sideways and his leg went the other way pretty much. He got hit low by the Pittsburgh Steelers safety. Minka Fitzpatrick went low on him and his knee bent backwards and back up. And it's looking and sounding like that he's also got a dislocated knee. Not only a dislocated knee, but also multiple ligament tears. I'm not exactly sure which ones, but my guess would be the LCL, the ACL, of course, and possibly the MCL. So definitely Nick Chubb is out for the rest of the year. Prayers up to him, hopeful for a speedy recovery because this is going to be a tough rehab process for him. And man, prayers up to Nick Chubb, man. One of my favorite running backs in the league for sure. So hopefully he is back and better than ever. But he is officially done for the year. And then another injury that is feared to be out for the year is Lions safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson is feared to have suffered a torn pectoral muscle and their loss against the Seahawks this last Sunday. And what a huge blow to that secondary. Like I said, the Detroit Lions have big years. They have a great defense this year, and that's a huge loss in that safety position as C.J. Gardner-Johnson is one of the best safeties in the league and the best safety on the line. So what a major blow to that Detroit Lions defense after signing a 1 year, I believe 1 year, 1 or 2 year deal with the Detroit Lions in the free agency this year. So they only played 2 games. And what a blow. I love CJ Gardner Johnson. He almost signed with my Denver Broncos, but he ultimately decided to go sign with the Detroit Lions. But yeah, it's sounding like CJ Gardner Johnson is also out for the rest of the year. And then it looks like the New York Giants football team avoided a major hit to their running back position as Saquon Barkley suffered a injury to his ankle over the last week or this last weekend against the I can't remember who they were playing, but he suffered a sprained ankle. Luckily, not a broken ankle that would keep him out possibly for the rest of the year, but only a sprained ankle, as he is only probably going to be out for about 3 more weeks. Three week, ankles don't take too bad, but they don't necessarily go away. They can linger, as we saw with Patrick Mahomes. He sprained his ankle in the playoff game against the Jaguars, and that lingered all the way to the Super Bowl, which was about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So they definitely can linger, especially when you play the game of football. But it sounds like Saquon Barkley is probably going to be back in about 2 or 3 weeks. So we'll see what happens with that. And then a rumor has sufficed over the last week as Kansas City Chiefs superstar tight end Travis Kelce is rumored to be dating pop singer Taylor Swift. Um, they have been seen hanging out. Taylor Swift showed up to the game this weekend against the Kansas City Chiefs and Jacksonville Jaguars. He was getting off the plane with Travis Kelce. There's been rumors on Instagram that they've been dating and stuff, and it's looking like it's coming to fruition as the couple look like they're getting a little comfortable with each other, or I shouldn't say couple, the pair, because we're not sure if they're exactly a couple, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be a couple soon. So obviously, Taylor Swift just went on one of her biggest tours of her career, literally changing the economy by making like billions of dollars in just ticket sales. So obviously Taylor Swift is one of the biggest names in the music industry right now. And of course, you mix that with one of the biggest superstar tight ends, especially for the Super Bowl winning Chiefs, Kansas City Chiefs, Travis Kelce. That is a dynamic pair and a dynamic couple that will definitely turn heads and will definitely be in the spotlight more often. So we'll see what happens with their relationship, but it's looking like those two are getting a little too comfortable with each other and looks like they're possibly going to be in a relationship soon. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, and then first, before we move on to our next topic, I want to get something off my chest that happened over this last weekend in the NFL. And man, bro, the Denver Broncos just find the worst ways to lose, I swear. And obviously, I don't know whose fault it is right now, but it was a heartbreaking loss over this last weekend against the Washington Commanders as the Broncos were up 21-3 at halftime and the Commanders came all the way back to win 35-33 um, with a major blow up on the Denver Broncos defense run by former head coach of the Denver Broncos, who is now the defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos. Vance Joseph and his defense completely imploded um, over this last week. And what a terrible call right at the end of the game. If you haven't seen it already, and I know I might be making excuses, but right at the end of the game, the Denver Broncos were on the 50-yard line and threw the ball all the way to the end zone, Hail Mary style, and caught it right as the seconds clicked off in the fourth quarter and scored a touchdown. And we're down 35-33, and a wild ending to this game, a miraculous catch in the end zone. And the Denver Broncos, after decided to go for 2 points to tie the game and go into overtime and possibly, win over the Commanders, and the ball was snapped. Russell Wilson dropped back, threw it, looked right, threw it to Cortland Sutton in the end zone, and the ball was broken up. And man, what an obvious miss pass interference call it was by the refs. I know I sound like a homer, but man, if you haven't seen this highlight, you need to go see this. Search up Commanders Broncos pass interference call, something like that along those lines. But what a horrible call. The defender, I believe it was like Derek Forrest or Benjamin St. Juste, one of the defenders for the Washington Commanders, literally was grabbing and holding on and jumping on top of Cortland Sutton, the wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, before the ball even got there. And then when the ball got there, the dude tried to jump over Cortland Sutton and was literally on top of his shoulders and fell on top of him, and the ball was incomplete, and the game was over, and the refs didn't throw the pass interference call. And talk about a repeat of the Rams and Saints playoff game just a couple of years ago, where the Rams player knocked the Saints wide receiver out of bounds 20 feet before the ball even reached the Saints wide receiver hands. And it literally was the same exact play. Literally, Cortland Sutton, the ball wasn't even near Cortland Sutton yet, and the dude jumped all over him, and the ball hit him in the hands because obviously he couldn't catch it because the freaking Washington Commander defender was on top of him, literally. It was just a horrible missed call, and it ruined the game, and the Denver Broncos ended up losing because of it out of a score of 35-33. And man, officiating is getting so bad. It really is. Over the last couple of years, man, it seems like ever since the freaking Des Bryant catch that happened like 8 years ago, officiating for the NFL has just been horrible. I mean, you could even go back to the Packers Seahawks game where the refs said touchdown and no touchdown, which ended up costing the Seahawks the loss of that game. That was like 10 years ago. But it seems like ever since then, you have all these plays. You have the Rams Saints obvious PI call in the playoff game. You have the Saints the Vikings in the playoff game a couple of years ago, where the Viking tight end pushed off on the defender, and the Saints ended up losing again because of a missed call. You had the Des Bryant not a touchdown call. Obviously, he held onto the ball, caught it, and made it in the touchdown. You have the one that just happened this last weekend. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Even in the Super Bowl this year, they called a holding call that was the most ticky-tack thing on the Eagles cornerback, James Bradbury. Literally put his hand on the Kansas City wide receivers, excuse me, let me rephrase. Put his hand on the Kansas City wide receiver, and they called it a holding penalty. Literally just touched him, and they called it a holding penalty, and pretty much won the Super Bowl for the Kansas City Chiefs. So, man, officiating, there's so many bad calls over the last couple of years, but it seems like it just gets worse and worse and worse every year. And this weekend showed and proved how bad of a missed call they missed in this game. And obvious, the whole world saw, even not only people watching on TV, but the people in the stands saw that was an obvious pass interference. And they had four refs standing there, sitting there, watching the whole time and didn't call it. The whole world saw it, but the refs apparently didn't see it. So, man, what a NFL officiating, man. You need to get your shit together because there has been some bad calls and some bad officiating over the last couple of years. And we need to, the NFL needs to make a rule that you could challenge, just like you can challenge plays, you should be able to challenge penalties because that would change the trajectory of so many ball games. If you could blatantly, obviously challenge a obvious penalty that should have happened, it would change the trajectory of so many games. So definitely NFL needs to look into that and look into their officiating and their problems and say, hey, we should instigate a rule where we can challenge plays, not only plays, but also penalties as well. And that would just change so many games. So that's my rant for the day, especially because my Denver Broncos ended up on the losing side because of an obvious PI call. But that is my rant for the day that I really just needed to get off my chest. Russell Wilson looked great. Obviously, the Broncos could be 2-0 if Will Lutz hits his field goals. Last week, we would have won 20-17 over the Raiders. And then, obviously, if we had a freaking defense who wouldn't blow a 18-point lead, we would be 2-0 right now and looking just great. The Sean Payton and Russell Wilson era would be looking awesome right now. Instead, it's looking terrible. And they still continue to put all the blame on Russell Wilson, who has looked like the old Russell Wilson and who has put up numbers, who has put up touchdown passes, who is looking like the old Russell Wilson. Um, you can't blame Russell Wilson for pass interference calls or a bad defense that can't hold a lead. So or even a kicker missing his field goals. Russell Wilson don't control that. So I don't get the Russell Wilson bash. Like, dude, just get off of him, please. Like, just let him play football because obviously the Denver Broncos' problem right now and the reason why they're 0-2 is not because of Russell Wilson. There's so many other ways. So don't bash Russell Wilson if you don't know your history or your information and where you're getting it from because it's obviously not Russell Wilson. All right, now moving on to the MLB, Major League Baseball, where we have a lot of news that has come out over the last week or so. And we are going to get right into that as we now have three new playoff teams that will be playing in the postseason for the World Series, as three teams have now just clinched their playoff berth. And those three teams are the Tampa Bay Rays, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Baltimore Orioles are now all in the playoffs for the World Series, which begins here in a couple of weeks. We are very end at the very end of the season here, and playoff baseball, man. If you don't like baseball, I at least recommend that you watch it in October because playoff baseball is electric. It is one of the best sporting events in the fall time, other than football. And man, it like I said, bro, it's electric, bro. It's so intense, especially if it's your team, because baseball. There's no time limits, man. Baseball is all based off outs and hits and runs and pretty much you doing you and your ability to score. It's no time limits. You can't come back and win with a time limit. You have to come back and win with your skill, and it is the most intense time in playoff. I mean, in the whole MLB season, especially in the World Series. So if you're not a baseball fan, definitely watch baseball, and I recommend you watch baseball in October because playoff baseball is electric, baby. So we got three new teams in. Speaking of the Tampa Bay Rays, as they are now, according just today, that they have reached a new deal for a new stadium in St. Petersburg, Florida. And the Tampa Bay Rays are in Tampa, Florida, obviously. They play at Tropicana Field, which is probably the worst MLB stadium. It is literally an indoor dome stadium, and people constantly hit home runs and hit the top of the stadium when they hit a home run. Um, it is, I've heard, like one of the most boring stadiums to go to. It's run down. It's just I've heard. I haven't personally been to Tampa, but this is the things I've heard. Tampa Bay desperately needs a new stadium, and if they don't get a new stadium, I could see them leaving to Nashville in a couple of years. But it sounds like that they are going to move across the lake into St. Petersburg, Florida, as they have reached a new deal for a new stadium. So hopefully, it's going to be a badass stadium. Hopefully, I'm sure it'll be indoor. I don't blame Florida teams for having indoor stadiums because of the humidity. Obviously, the Miami Marlins play in an indoor stadium because, like I said, I went to Florida, man, and that humidity is no joke down there, especially at like 7 in the morning, bro. It's hot. And then you hit midday when you play baseball games. Yeah. So I don't blame them having an indoor stadium, but hopefully it's a better setup, a higher roof so the balls don't hit the roof when they hit home runs. Hopefully there's cool amenities to do. Like, hopefully this is just a cool ballpark for the Tampa Bay Rays because their team deserves it, because the Tampa Bay Rays have been one of the best teams in baseball over the last 5 years. And it looks like they're only getting better and better as the years go on. Eventually, they're going to win a World Series in the next couple of years, if it's not this year. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, they're getting a new stadium. I'm not sure. It'll probably be a couple years, probably be about 2 or 3 years that they'll have to keep playing in Tropicana Field. But they build stadiums fast nowadays. So definitely deserving for the Tampa Bay Rays. And then some big news has come out with the Los Angeles Angels organization over the last week as they have officially shut down superstar outfielder slash pitcher Shohei Ohtani for the rest of the season. As I mentioned in my previous podcast, Shohei Ohtani hurt his elbow and is possibly looking to get Tommy John surgery, which is a 8 to 9 to 10 month recovery period, maybe even possibly a year. So hopefully it's not a Tommy John surgery, but it looks like they're shutting him down just to be safe and make sure that he doesn't injure his elbow even more if it isn't Tommy John. So they have officially shut down superstar Shohei Ohtani for the rest of the year. And that's not the only Los Angeles Angels news, as they are possibly looking into trade their superstar outfielder Mike Trout, who has been with the team his whole career over the last 10 years. Of course, signed that huge 12-year, $400 million contract extension with the LA Angels just a couple of years ago. And they are looking to trade possibly their superstar outfielder in the summer this year. So, I mean, excuse me, not the summer, in the winter this year. And the reason being is because Mike Trout has not been able to stay on the field and stay healthy. I mean, he's a great player when he's on the field. He's a home run hitter. He's a highlight playmaker. Um, One of the best players in baseball when he's healthy. But over the last couple of years, since he signed that contract, he has not lived up to his contract expectations, and has been hurt every single year and has played barely any games over the last couple of years. I think he only played like 1/4 of each season over the last couple of years. So it looks like the Los Angeles Angels are looking to move on from their superstar outfielder because, like I said, Mount Trout is now getting up there in age as well. And, they're probably going to look to trade him for some young prospects possibly. So we'll see what the Angels do, but it's going to be a big offseason for the LA Angels as they could possibly lose both of their superstar outfielders either in free agency or in trades possibly, or even in injuries, which I mentioned with Shohei Ohtani. So it's going to be a big offseason for those LA Angels. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be very interesting what happens there. And then lastly, one of the best players, one of the best pitchers in history for the St. Louis Cardinals, has reached a huge milestone in his career as he has just picked up his 200th win on the pitching mound. And that player is starting pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals, Adam Wainwright, who is in the final year of his career as he is looking to end and retire at the end of this year. And he has now accomplished one of the huge features that not many pitchers have done in MLB history as he has reached his 200th win on the mound. Of course, he's about 38, 39 years old. So, obviously he's going to retire this year because, pitchers just don't last that long. But man, congratulations for him hitting a huge milestone at the end of his career and being pretty much literally, I think only 5 pitchers have ever reached 200 wins in their career, and I think he's probably the fifth one that has done it. So yeah, like I said, only 5 pitchers have done it in MLB history out of all the pitchers we've had over the last 100 and something years that the MLB has been around. So definitely a huge, huge milestone for Adam Wainwright and the St. Louis Cardinals. Um, what a great career he's had, and he'll definitely be a surefire Hall of Famer, if not a Hall of Famer, definitely a Cardinals Hall of Famer in the near future. But man, what a way to end your career with your 200th win on the mound. All right, now moving on to some quick news around other sports that has happened over the last week. And first off, we are going to the NHL with this first one as the Columbus Blue Jackets have now lost their head coach, Mike Babbitt, as he resigns after 3 months amid controversy with the Blue Jackets. And the Blue Jackets hired Mike Babbitt. Mike Babbitt is one of the most notable coaches in the NHL, one of the most winning coaches in the NHL, and one of the most recognizable coaches in the NHL. So it was definitely a great hire for the Columbus Blue Jackets, but it only lasted 3 months because of a scandal that claims that he invaded players' privacy. I'm not really all too sure of what that all entails. Um, but pretty much I think he was like making players and like meetings and stuff put their like camera rolls on the big screen in front of the whole team to see and stuff like that. Some weird things like that. But you're a coach, but you're not their mother, you're not their father, bro. You're invading these people's personal space. These are not only athletes, but these are human beings just like me and you, and they want to keep private stuff between themselves, just like me and you would. That we would something we would want to keep private instead of putting it on the big screen and letting the whole world know our invasion of privacy or our own privacy. So yeah, only lasted 3 months, and I see why the Columbus Blue Jackets, fired him, but he pretty much quit. But I think they were going to fire him anyways. But yeah, you can't invade privacy. But man, what a huge shot to the Columbus Blue Jackets. They obviously hired a new coach after they fired Mike Babbitt, and they hired Pascal Vincent to be their new head coach. So we'll see what happens. I'm not too sure who really Pascal Vincent is. We'll see how the Columbus Blue Jackets do this year. Not a team that I really see going far in the season and in the playoffs, possibly if they even make it to the playoffs. But man, what a crusher to the Columbus Blue Jackets! Not a great way to start off the year, especially with the NHL season here in just about under a month. So we'll see what happens with all that. But anyways, moving on to some other news and the college football world, as wide receiver Travis Hunter for the Colorado Buffaloes is out for 3 weeks after suffering a chest injury during the game against Colorado State. I think they played this last Saturday, as it was kind of a cheap shot as Travis Hunter was going down the sidelines. Obviously, the ball went over his head, clear out of bounds. The play was pretty much over, and then the Colorado State safety slammed into him well moments after the play was dead and knocked him on the ground. Apparently, he went to the hospital after, but I guess he was fine. Obviously, it's probably just some chest bruising or some kind of chest injury on that matter. But yeah, head coach for the Colorado Buffaloes, Deion Sanders, mentioned after the game that Travis Hunter will possibly be out for about 2 to 3 weeks. So we'll see what happens there. That's definitely a huge hit to that Colorado offense, who already is freaking, 3-0 now. The hottest team in college football, the most popular team in college football. The average ticket price is $500 to go to a Colorado Buffalo game, whether home or away, pretty much. So obviously they're the biggest team and the biggest thing in sports pretty much right now. So definitely a huge hit to that offense, but I think they'll do just fine with Shadur Sanders, Deion's kid at quarterback. They have plenty of other weapons on that offense. It's not all about Travis Hunter. So they will bounce back just fine, and it's only for a couple of weeks. So I think they'll do just fine without Travis Hunter. But man, yeah, that's a big shot to that offense for sure. And then other college football news, as another person has been fired, as Michigan State has fired their head coach for football, Mel Tucker, after a sexual harassment claim has come and arisen over the last week or so. And like I said, man, these teams just don't screw around now, bro. If it's something dangerous and if it's something not, that doesn't follow their morals and standards, they're going to let them go, bro. Whether you're a Hall of Fame coach or a beginning coach, they're going to let you go because things like that just, they don't matter anymore. So we'll see what happens with Michigan State as they're looking for a new head coach. And the season is well underway in college football. So we'll see if this affects them dearly over the year. I'm sure they'll probably hire one of their assistant coaches to be a part time coach for the rest of the year. But yeah, that's a huge shot to that Michigan State. and one of the biggest football programs in college football, obviously, every year. All right, moving on to our last quick topic of this podcast. As the UFC and the WWE worlds are coming together, as the UFC and WWE have agreed to merge together as one company, and the effects are already rampant as the WWE and UFC begin laying off hundreds of employees after their merger and saving millions of dollars because of this. And man, this is kind of crazy. As two of the biggest leagues and probably the two biggest fighting leagues in the world have come together as one, as Dana White and who's the guy for the WWE? It's on the tip of my tongue, McMahon or something like that. Two of the biggest owners in fighting history, in the fighting sport, especially Dana White, the most recognizable man, not only in the United States in fighting, but in the world of fighting. The UFC is the biggest fighting uh, event every year, and in all countries, one of the biggest fighting sports in the world. As that thing has become worldwide and global, and of course, everybody loves the WWE. That's been around for many, many years now with WWE Raw and SmackDown. Um, Still continues to remain popular as of today. But yeah, two of the biggest fighting companies in the world have agreed on a merge. And I don't know what kind of effects this is going to bring, but it's already bringing effects of firing and laying off people. I don't know if you'll start seeing maybe UFC fighters go to the WWE more, or even vice versa, the WWE fighters going to the UFC. Obviously, we saw CM Punk and Brock Lesnar do this over their careers. They fought in the UFC and the WWE. Um, so we'll see what happens with all this. But yes, the two biggest fighting companies in the world have come together and merged as one, and the effects could be humongous in the future. So we'll see what plays out with all that. All right, we are ending towards the end of this very long podcast. Like I said, we had a lot to talk about and we covered quite a bit. So thank you guys for sticking around and tuning in and listening. And before I let you go, I'm going to do my annual fun fact of the day. And my fun fact of the day for September 19th, 2023 is the U.S. has already recorded music revenues of $8.4 billion. And this is an all-time high, and we are only not middle through the year, but pretty much not even towards the end of the year yet, and they've already surpassed an all-time high of revenue and of making $8.4 billion. And it just shows you how big Spotify and all these, companies now are, like Apple Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, I mean, on and on and on, has, these companies are just so huge now, and it has just boosted the music industry and the music economy. And they've already made $8.4 billion just because of listeners like me and you. And artists are making tons of money off, people listening to their music and blowing up and, blowing up in popularity because we have access to listen to their music, and it's so easy to listen to their music now. So it's benefiting a lot of people. But man, $8.4 billion, and we're not even at the end of the year yet. So let's see how much money they can raise towards the end of the year in the music industry. But anyways, that is the fun fact of the day for you. Thank you guys for sticking around and tuning in. Of course, if you guys are enjoying the podcast, go and like and follow my Instagram account at The Scarb Show. Make sure you like and follow on all my platforms at The Scarb Show, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And also Bullhorn, if you guys are a member of that podcasting sync, we are now on that platform as well. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And again, I am your host, Andrew Scarborough. We are live in Salt Lake City, and this has been The Scarb Show, everybody, and we will see you guys next week.